the session. Jeff, you have unlimited access to the team here as well as our panelists. So what I'm going to do is first start off with a short presentation on planned giving, the different gift options at Cortland, and then we'll hear from David and Sandy. I have some questions for them, and hopefully others will join in as we go. But being 12:05, I would like to begin. I'm going to stop sharing my video in order for me to pull up my presentation. That way our screen, the screen that you will see will be only the presentation. So just bear with me for 1 minute. Alrighty then. Well, welcome and thanks for those that have tuned in. I'm Rich Coyne, a 2007 alumnus and the Associate Vice President for Institutional Advancement. Currently, I oversee planned giving at Cortland, and I'm delighted to provide this opportunity for you to learn more about planned giving and how to also create a legacy at SUNY Cortland. As I mentioned, we are recording the seminar for those that are unable to join us. If you have any questions, you're welcome to save them to the end, drop them in the chat box, or just raise your hand at the end or speak up at the end of the program. So for the format, we're going to first start with a short presentation on some planned gift options, and then we'll hear from two alumni that are members of the Lofty Elm Society and have documented a planned gift with the Cortland College Foundation. For those that may not be familiar, you can adjust the layout on the top right, the icon there, layout, which will allow you to change your views of when folks are speaking, make them larger, smaller, etc. I hope you find this discussion informative and insightful. We are simply here to offer an opportunity for consideration in meeting your philanthropic as well as your financial goals. So at Cortland, we take a donor-centric approach to fundraising. The development team will visit with donors to learn more about their Cortland experiences, what may have influenced their career path or life path, and determine whether the individual has the interest in supporting the university. Now, this takes time through trusted conversations as the relationship is established. We learn that we learn of the philanthropic interests of the donor. For example, it can support scholarship, or maybe you're interested in funding professional development opportunities for faculty, supporting athletics, maybe your iconic facilities such as the Lynn Park 68 SUNY Cortland Alumni House, or outdoor education program like Racket Lake. Basically, planned gifts can be designated to what is near and dear to you. I think there's a persona out there that it goes unrestricted, though that's appreciated. You can earmark a planned gift. So at its core, that is very much what planned giving is. Taking a donor-centric approach, listening to a donor's philanthropic interests, what they may wish to support at Cortland, as well as how a charitable giving can be integrated into their financial plans. So I'll give a quick example. To endow a scholarship at Cortland, our minimum endowment amount is $25,000. To name a scholarship that lasts in perpetuity, which is the life of the college. There was a wonderful webinar hosted actually by Tina, who's on the call today, on how to establish and name a scholarship here at Cortland, which can be accessible through the Red Dragon Network. But a planned gift is one way of achieving that philanthropic goal of endowing a scholarship. And then maybe meeting your financial goal, you may wish to create a charitable gift annuity that provides you income through annuity payments over time, with the residual going to Cortland. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But lastly, here at Cortland, we cannot provide tax advice. Rather, we simply help educate donors on the various ways a gift can be structured and to help serve as a resource to a financial planner. What I hope you take away from this slide is that the team here at Cortland is ready and able to assist with your charitable goals and help answer questions. So our Lofty Elm Society is our planned giving society that recognizes donors who have shared their future gift intentions with Cortland by documenting and in most cases substantiating the percentage or amount of their future gift. When we mention ways to create a legacy without impacting your lifestyle, planned giving is a vehicle that provides this flexibility. As you can see there, the Lofty Elm bears its name from our alma mater, written over a century ago, when elm trees surrounded the Cortland Normal School downtown. So currently we have 259 members of the Lofty Elm Society. We are in a comprehensive campaign for Cortland with a goal of 25 million to be raised by June 30th of 2022. You can see the all-in logo on the bottom right. To give you a peek behind the curtain, through the generosity of our donors, we're actually currently at 24 million spread across 5 different strategic priorities. And you can learn more about those priorities by visiting cortland.edu/campaign. You can see that 45 members have been added to the Lofty Elm Society since the start of this campaign, which actually makes up 1/3 of our current campaign total, so approximately 8 million in planned gifts. So, yes, establishing a planned gift with Cortland during a fundraising campaign also recognizes your commitment as a campaign donor and establishes you as a member of our Lofty Elm Society. So over the next couple slides, you'll see examples of different gifts that Cortland accepts as part of our planned giving society. Most common for Cortland is an outright amount or percentage of the final estate listed in a donor's will. For an expert tip here, when I gave the example before on the previous slide about establishing a scholarship at 25,000, most likely that was discovered through building that relationship with a member of the development team. They will simply suggest just listing the Cortland College Foundation at a percentage or a dollar amount in your will to support a scholarship. All of our donor-funded scholarships require an agreement to be drafted, which could go into further detail about, maybe the major or the class year of the student, a GPA. Trying to list all of that in a will can be cumbersome, or making amendments to your will result in attorney fees. So simply just listing the foundation and working with staff on the scholarship agreement in this example, which can be amended at no cost, is the most beneficial to the donor. There is bequest language that can be found on our website, which is cortland.giftplans.org, and I'll have that up on the screen in a moment. More recently, though, and more commonly, what has been more recently common, I should say, has been IRA beneficiaries. So they are very easy to designate a beneficiary and can commonly be done online through the financial institution you have established your IRA with. You can actually list multiple beneficiaries as well. And it's important to note, it is best to give away the residual of your IRA to a charity versus passing it on to an heir, because there could be tax implications for them. So a better option may be to make your heirs the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, as those funds, once received, are tax-free. Speaking of life insurance policies, we are focused here at Cortland on whole life policies with a guaranteed death benefit. You will hear a little bit more from our panelist, David Turybury, with this gift option. Why this is attractive about life insurance policies is that there's a significant financial impact you can have at Cortland. So depending on your age and when the insurance policy was created, the death benefit can be up to 5 times greater in the amount that will come to Cortland than what you end up contributing as your total premium payments. Additionally, if you establish the Cortland College Foundation as the owner of the policy and make the annual premium payments to the foundation, you can receive gift credit for those annual premium payments. It's a great way to become a member of our President's Circle, with of $1,000 or more, and I'm going to say most premium payments will be $1,000 or more per year. But though there are some stipulations, like you would need to pay off the policy within 10 years if Cortland is the owner of that policy. 2 examples of gifts that provide you or loved ones income are charitable gift annuities and trusts. And then, just for the sake of time today, I'll mention a charitable gift annuity, or what we refer to as a CGA. Real estate can also be given, and in most cases, there is no minimum gift requirement to become a member of the Lofty Elm Society. So like that of a life insurance policy or trust, charitable gift annuities will require giving away assets now. So it's much different than just simply listing beneficiaries of an IRA or within your will. There are 2 types of charitable gift annuities, a standard gift annuity and a deferred gift annuity. The main difference is that the annuity payments will be provided at a later date than instead of immediately. So deferred, you can choose to say start the annuity payments in 5 years, whereas a standard gift annuity would start immediately, whether it's done quarterly, annually, etc. Cash and stock is what's most gifted in these examples. The gift is invested and then provides the donor and/or another beneficiary, like a spouse, a fixed income stream for life in exchange for a donation to Cortland upon death. So I like visuals, and here on the screen you can see that in step one, if you give cash or appreciated stock, there are tax advantages or benefits to giving appreciated stock that will reduce your capital gains tax. Then in step two, we in the foundation provide you and up to one other beneficiary fixed payments for life. So this example, it is a standard CGA not deferred. And then step three, the remainder goes to Cortland upon the death. If it's for two folks, it would require that both individuals pass. If it was set up as only one but beneficiary, once that individual passes. There are illustrations that we at Cortland can run for you to give you a much better sense of the investment, as well as the tax implications and benefits, as well as the annual premium annuity payments, that would go to you. There's also visuals on the Cortland.giftplans.org website as well. So something to just share with everyone, the recent Secure Act has increased the required minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72. This actually happened last year, meaning that once you reach 72, you are required to take distributions from your IRA. Since Roth IRAs began in 1997, in most cases, when we at Cortland are talking to donors, we're talking about traditional IRAs, which those distributions will be part of your taxable income. However, with an IRA rollover, you can still do it at the age of 70 and a half. If you do not need the IRA as a form of income, you could consider giving it to charity. This allows an individual to give up to $100,000 in 1 year to either a charity or to various charities. I mentioned this because we think of planned giving as a future gift, but here's an example of a planned giving instrument such as an IRA that provides a gift now versus when the individual passes, through a beneficiary. We have many donors who work with their financial institution to actually send their required minimum distribution checks directly to Cortland as a charitable gift. This is to avoid any taxable income that you may see if when taking your required IRA distributions. So a couple other gifts that cost nothing today and really have no impact on your lifestyle. We already talked about wills, bequests, retirement plans. We talked a little bit about life insurance policy and designations, but the other ones there, payable on death account is very similar to transfer on death account. It's an arrangement but deals with a person's bank assets instead of their stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or other investment assets. So you would actually set this up now, and then when you pass, it will be directed over to Cortland if Cortland is the charity in which you so choose to support. So I have a money market account going to my wife if there were anything that happened to me, which I recently just updated the information on because we married in 2019. So now when I sign into my Fidelity, I see a little TOD inscription next to my money market account. But both POD and TOD agreements offer a quick means of dispersing assets to avoid the probate process, which can actually take several months. So not many donors know that. It's actually important if you don't want to have it tied up in probate and you want to support charities through through these funds or through these accounts, you can actually designate a charity or an heir. And then donor advised funds, they've actually been becoming more popular recently. They are like a charitable investment account for the sole purpose of supporting charitable organizations that you care about. When a donor contributes cash, appreciated securities, or other assets to a donor advised fund at a public charity, like for example, we'll say Fidelity Charitable, in most cases, you are eligible to take an immediate tax deduction. Then those funds can be invested for tax-free growth, and you can recommend grants to Cortland over a period of time. In most cases, a life-changing event occurs. You sell your business, as a way to avoid capital gains tax while meeting your philanthropic goals. You actually can pass this on to your heirs, but not as a gift, as a way for them to continue to make charitable gifts and to continue to enjoy, giving and giving back. Or you can immediately determine that the charity will receive those funds at death. So just to review, it's really 3 easy steps in becoming a member of the Lofty Elm Society. You can, 1, document the gift with the Cortland College Foundation. This could be sharing the beneficiary form of an IRA, that is to support the Cortland College Foundation. And then using that example in IRA, we substantiate the amount. And we want to do that, especially in a campaign or any other time, because when you do substantiate the amount, and by doing it, like let's use the IRA as example, you can, if you're comfortable, you can provide a recent statement. Then, we know the amount, it's shared with the staff. We can help guide and ask questions of what your philanthropic interests are. So if it were to exceed 25,000, as we used as the example previously, you can establish a scholarship if you like. But as I mentioned, you can designate or you can give unrestricted, as we always prefer supporting the Cortland Fund. And then I'll wrap up with this slide. I just want to mention that we send out the Lofty Elm newsletters twice a year, both printed and in email form. If you are not receiving those and would like to, please send us a message. We're going to have Mike Zaccardo drop my email and my phone number in the chat box. Lofty Elm members are also listed in our annual report each year, and we're working on bringing back Lofty Elm events like we have done, hosted on campus in the past, previous to COVID. Donors are added to a plaque that can be found within Brockway Hall. And then, as I mentioned, that is our website there, cortland.giftplans.org. There's actually some fun calculations that you can do on your own, or you can fill out a form notifying us that you would like a charitable gift annuity illustration as an example. So now what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen, and I will start to introduce our 2 panelists for today. I want to thank them for joining us. So first we have David Turybury, who is a 1990 physical education graduate at SUNY Cortland. He spent most of his career teaching health and physical education in Baltimore County, Maryland, and also served as a department chair. In addition to teaching, David spent over 30 years coaching 87 seasons. I had to ask him how you add all those up and keep track, but he's got a formula for that, of high school and youth athletics. He is a current member of our foundation board of directors and serves as vice chair as well as national co-chair of the All In campaign. David and his wife Sheila are involved in multiple charities close to home and have also established multiple endowed scholarships as well as multiple planned gifts with the Cortland College Foundation. So he has certainly gone all in for Cortland over these past 4 or 5 years during our campaign. If he looks familiar, it is because you've seen him maybe in the recent edition of Columns, where we mentioned his planned gifts, his and Sheila's. For those that haven't received Columns, you should be receiving them shortly. And David, if you don't mind just unmuting yourself and actually sharing maybe where you are right now.
I'm actually in a hotel room in Las Vegas. I went out to meet my brother out here. Haven't seen him in a couple of years, so we're watching some NBA or Olympic basketball preparations. It's not going very well for the men's team, but hopefully they'll turn it around for the game today. But yeah, I'm in a hotel room in Vegas. Happy to be here with everybody to share, hopefully give some good information that will be helpful.
Thanks, David. And then next we have Sandy Morley, a 1977 physical education graduate of SUNY Cortland. She spent over 34 years as an educator, principal, and coach, in addition to being a past president of New York State Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, and currently serves as the foundation president of that association. She also served as an adjunct faculty member at Cortland and is a Sea Club Hall of Famer for track and field and skiing, as well as serving as a board member and the past president for Sea Club. Sandy has spent her career developing opportunities for students with disabilities, which included creating a precursor to the current Unified Sports Program for students with disabilities for New York State. She worked with the fencing administration at the Empire State Games, as well as a volunteer at the Olympic Games in Atlanta. Sandy has been a lifelong supporter of Cortland with over 43 years of support, focusing on Racket Lake, Sea Club endowment, and athletics. This includes naming the flagpole at Huntington Memorial Camp. Sandy has also established a planned gift with the Cortland College Foundation, and I would want to thank both of them for taking the time to spend with us. One has guests visiting. David's all the way out in Las Vegas enjoying some vacation. So thank you both. And what I'd like to do is, let's see if again, I think you'll have to change the settings on your screen to pin folks if you want to make them larger on your screen. Again, the layout button's on the top right. So what we'll do is the first question that we have is if you don't mind sharing the motivation or inspiration for supporting SUNY Cortland, and if you're comfortable sharing at what level you started to support Cortland. We're going to start with Sandy first, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thanks for having me, and nice to meet you, Jeff. Glad you're here. I'm giving back now because I realize how much Cortland has impacted me professionally and personally. So many of my friends now that I either met there or I've met since are important in my life. And I realized how Cortland shaped me over the years, but it didn't really start that way. I think for the first 20 years that I left Cortland, sure, I was excited, but if I got something in the mail to contribute to something, it was because if I contributed, you had a keychain or a blanket. So it was very extrinsically motivated for a while. But as I got older and more mature, I think, I started looking at what I really could give, and that's kind of hard. So when I think of the word philanthropy, that kind of scary because I don't consider myself a philanthropist. But I started giving a little bit more, and I wasn't sure what I could afford. So I started giving what I could. There were a couple of opportunities at Racket Lake. As Rich mentioned, I'm very supportive of Racket Lake, which is the outdoor ed center for Cortland, which is just beautiful. It's a historical gem in the Adirondacks. And it meant a lot to me when I attended as a student, and then I was able to take my students there years later. So they had some opportunities to buy a canoe to support their fleet, and I did that in honor of my parents. And then, as Rich mentioned, they started naming rights, and I didn't feel I could do a building, so I chose the flagpole because that's what I could afford at that time. But it still meant a lot. I dedicated that to my parents. And as time went on, the Cortland Sea Club is the booster club for athletics, and I'm very involved there. And an endowment was started there, and I started contributing there over time. And actually, I will tell you that once I retired, I had a much better handle on what I could give. I didn't want to impact what I was leaving for my family, and I didn't want to impact my lifestyle. So that's kind of how I started massaging. And I will tell you, all these years later, I am still massaging and going to be changing how I give and what I give to Cortland over the next couple of years.
Thanks, Sandy. And I'm going to have David chime in a moment here, but David, you're someone that actually was able to retire early. So what's interesting is that Sandy, and we hear that a lot on the development side, right? Folks, once they have retired, once they're empty nesters, they have that better sense of what they need to be able to live and live comfortably. I know David, Sheila still works. But I would like, if you don't mind, also sharing about the inspiration of why you give back and you're so involved with Cortland, but also your ability to retire early and all the planning that went into your ability to retire in your 50s, if you don't mind.
Okay. Big thing for me is Sheila and I are both first generation college students, and we both paid for it all ourselves with some help from scholarships also. And actually, when I got married, Sheila hadn't finished, and we paid for that as we went along. as far as for me, Cortland, I hate to say this out loud, but I've done it before, so I'll do it. $1,000 made the difference where I went to college, and Ithaca at the time was about 14,000. They got me down to 4. Cortland was around 4, and they got me down to 3. So $1,000 made the difference for me. So that's why when we initially set up the scholarships in honor of a bunch of great teachers I had there, Norma Carr, Phyllis McGinley, Judy Rink, who's a grad who was the department chair at University of South Carolina, where I went to grad school, which I had no idea when I went down there, but there was a grad, Cortland grad that was the head of the department down at the University of South Carolina. So Cortland has been intertwined in my life in a way that, I meet people in restaurants and in airports all the time. Oh, they see my Cortland gear on, which I wear all the time. And they, oh, my sister went to Cortland or my brother went to Cortland. So for me, it's really just Cortland has been a seminal part of my life and a turning point as a first generation college student. And without some support, $1,000 difference, I may have gone to that other evil institution and not had the great experience I had at Cortland. So that's why we give. And one of the big things for us, for my wife Sheila and I, is that, too much is given, much is expected. And we feel it's incumbent on us to give back. And we just, Cortland is the place where most of it goes because of the great, as I tell my kids, without Cortland, you're not here. And, they laugh at me, but it's true. Without Cortland, none of these great things happen for me and for my family. Oh, and I started out giving just a cold call, actually, and Rich picked it up. And, started out, well, how can I give back? And I asked, and Rich had plenty of opportunities and availabilities for me. And we started out with an endowed scholarship, which with $5,000 a year over 5 years. And we chose to give $1,000 extra a year simply to so they can be awarded immediately instead of having to wait for the endowment to be at that $25,000 level. So we started with one, added another one, and Rich kept giving ideas, and that you'll hear about a little bit later. Some of those ideas were wonderful for us to be able to hit our philanthropic goals, and we plan on trying to find different ways we can give. And that's the big thing. It's been made very comfortable, as Sandy said, to us of, okay, we can give this now. What can we do later? What can we do more of and still have our lifestyle not impacted? And the last part of your question, Rich, I think was being able to retire early. I had the great blessing of having someone tell me the very first month I was teaching, saying, David, you shouldn't make the same mistakes I made. I, of course, laughed and said, well, Larry, what are you talking about? And he talked about putting money away in an IRA in addition to pension. And that was just great advice. And for some unknown reason, I actually listened at age 24. And it turned out to be a great thing because I was able to retire early. And I'm also using some of that, as you'll find out later, through the IRA beneficiary stuff to be able to give back more to Cortland. I think that hopefully covers it, Rich.
Yeah, no, thanks, David, and thanks, Sandy. David, you bring up one good piece of information that I think it's important for donors to also understand and know. We talk about, or at least in my presentation, the 25,000 that's required as our minimum, endowment level. I'm sure years down the road it may increase that minimum amount, but right now it's 25,000. That can be daunting for some individuals to try to create a scholarship now. However, what we do offer, for those that do wish to have, an endowed scholarship at some point, maybe through that planned gift, and they know that they leave this legacy, why we're here today and what we're talking about. The only downside is that they don't get to really experience the impact of their future gift. But one way, or a way that we're allowing that, is if you endow a scholarship through a planned gift, you can actually start sponsoring it now, as David alluded to, giving $1,000 as a sponsored award. It is required that you do it for 5 years, so it would be a $5,000 total commitment. but you get that taste and that sense of supporting a student while you're still alive, knowing that your future gift is going to last in perpetuity, as long as it's that minimum endowment level. So thank you for bringing that up, allowing me to expand a little bit more. So we're going to move on to our second question. Sandy, if you can share why an outright bequest gift where you articulated a dollar amount within your will was the preferred plan giving vehicle for you. I think that may help carry.
Yeah. I think that's also changed. I knew I wanted to confirm something going to Cortland in my will, and in my knowledge base with my family, you learn financially, you learn from your family, and then you learn from your friends, and you learn from colleagues. So my understanding at that point was at least to get something on the book. So I did that through my will, and I had a set amount that I have coming right off the top going to Cortland. Since then, that was probably, I don't know how many years ago, but there are so many other things. And Rich, you talked about some of them today. I'm starting to look at my other investments. And, like David, I was very fortunate that I did invest in other things other than just planning on my pension, which we're lucky to have. But now I'm looking at things like I have an annuity and I have life insurance, which I don't need, but I've continued using it because of the cash value and potential payback. My family is taken care of. I don't have to worry about leaving extra. So as I said before, I'm kind of in the process of moving on from that initial giving in a will, the designation, to looking at some of these other opportunities. I did I was on the seminar with Tina a month or two ago about creating scholarships. So those are some things that are so I am still changing what my gift is going to be to Cortland. It's still maturing, I think, over the next couple of years as I get straightened out. But that's where I started because it was the simplest, it was the cleanest for me, and I knew I had something on the books for Cortland. So that's why I started with the will. And then I contribute annually to the C Club endowment as much as I can, and I have an ongoing pledge there in addition to that.
Thank you, Sandy. And you raise a good point is once you're in the Lofty Elm Society, you'll continue to receive those communications, and maybe there is something that piques your interest, whether it's a conversation with a staff member or a piece of communication you receive in the mail. So thank you. And we're excited to hear more about those opportunities when they materialize a little bit more with you. David, same question, but if you wouldn't mind sharing more about your life insurance policy as the example. You took it upon yourself to conduct the research for the right policy and made the foundation the owner, as we gave that example before, where you're actually making the premium payments to Cortland and getting gift credit for that as well. So why was this of interest to you and Sheila?
Well, you kind of mentioned it earlier. I think you said up to 5 times the amount that we put in will end up going back to Cortland. And for us, that was more bang for your buck, if you will. So we make the premiums yearly. It's about $9,000 a year. And at the end of 10 years, so 90,000 total investment, and Cortland will end up with 500,000. So for us, it was really bang for the buck. And the beauty of it also is it helps us reach philanthropic things and tax benefits because we get to write off the premiums on a yearly basis on the taxes. So it's a kind of a double dipping, if you will, for us, that we get to give and we get a tax break. So that fit very nicely into our giving plan of what we were looking to do. And again, a larger amount, when we're no longer here, that's, someone else can benefit from it and I can't take it with me. So that was a big part of what we wanted to do.
And just to confirm too, in David's example with the life insurance policy, he took the action of doing the research in regards to which policy was best for him and Sheila. Unfortunately, we don't issue life insurance policies at Cortland. So if it was something that a donor would be interested in, where they would create a new policy and making the foundation the owner, that is something that we can walk them through and help them with. But ultimately, they need to determine which policy makes the best sense for their family.
Yeah, Rich, we made that determination, but again, I want to give you guys credit as to walking through how we do it and how we end up we pay quarterly is what we chose to do instead of monthly. And it's really very, very simple. And Rich and the team were terrific and made it very, very easy for us to get all the paperwork signed and be done with it. It was a very, quite simple process after you decided what and how much you wanted to do. So thanks for that help, Rich.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for that. What a large investment or large impact you're going to have at Cortland. So let's move on and talk a little bit about the impact of each of your future gifts. Some is for student scholarships, some for programmatic support. We're going to start with David first. You have a few different types of planned giving or planned gifts with the foundation. We just talked about the life insurance policy, but you also have Cortland, the beneficiary of a few retirement accounts. And you are supporting those initiatives now, right? And that your planned gift will then add, you're going to add on top of that and just make it larger. So, why is it important for you to see that impact now versus just saying, well, I have the IRA beneficiary that will kick in later on and Cortland will get a good amount of money that will support student scholarships. Why was it important for you to start, you and Sheila started now?
Well, part of it was to set an example for our children. We, again, believe that you should be giving back, and we've all had people help us, and it doesn't have to be just financially. I mean, giving back to the college of, spending time with students, whatever. We really enjoy. I know I talked to one of the donor recipients or the scholarship recipients about once a month now. And she is doing terrific, and she'll be a great teacher. And for me personally, seeing good young teachers, it kind of helps to keep me young and to hear them and see if I can help in any other way other than just the scholarship, whether it be advice or a job or whatever I can do, we're willing to do that. But the big thing is our children have already said that they hope to continue after we're gone, meeting scholarship recipients and stuff, so that that legacy of giving continues. And of course, our hope is that our children will add to it. Now, I don't know if it'll be at Cortland. I hope, but you never know. But that the example of philanthropy is important to give back whenever and however you can.
Thanks, David. And then Sandy, comparable. You provide annual support, as you mentioned, to Racket Lake and to the Sea Club. Why is it important for that larger planned gift to enhance these programs that you're currently supporting now?
Well, I can only do so much on an annual basis, but both those entities are really important to me. But I targeted them because of the impact that they had on me personally, and I like David, I really want students to experience the most that they can out of their experience at Cortland. Racket Lake is such a unique, and it's not just physical education, but biology majors go there, staff goes there, and it's an amazing. It's the first great camp of the Adirondacks. It's an amazing place to be. And as I said, I went there as a student in the summer, in the winter. I've taught there with Project Adventure. For teachers, I've brought my own students there. So I want students to have that experience. There's so many of my friends that went there who never experienced the outdoors at all. They came from the city, from the island, just never played in the Adirondacks. So that's critical. I think living in the out of doors and appreciating what we have in New York State is critical. And with the Sea Club, to be able to go back and watch what our athletes are doing and to support our student athletes and our coaches, ongoing, they have such expertise and they've grown so much, and the facilities that are required to produce quality sports and athletics has high demands, and we've been so happy to be able to support new fields, new programs, the soccer fields, the softball field, the baseball field, the football initiative, the Hall of Champions initiative. Those all facilitate a better experience for the students going to Cortland. So that's why it's important for me annually, and it's important for me in terms of what I've put away for the future.
Thanks, Sandy. And I got to add, it's been very enjoyable having worked with you on that Sea Club board and really boosting the endowment to a level where we are able to do those things, as you just mentioned, for our student athletes. So it's been exciting. And expanding a little bit more on that, we've been receiving over the 4 years or so since we've really made it a focused, concerned effort, actually realized planned gifts from some of our former Hall of Famers that unfortunately are no longer with us, but they have chosen to support the C Club endowment, in their estate plans. So we'll move on to, I think we have time for one more question. David kind of touched upon this a little bit, so we can circle back to him, but I'm going to start off with Sandy first. So maybe you can share your experience working with the Cortland development staff. I want to say that, maybe you worked with Tina first to start off, but maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
I will, and I'm sorry Tina's not still here. When I was a principal, Tina called me kind of out of the blue, introduced herself and said she was coming into the Albany area to visit with another alumni about planned gifts. And I kind of went, okay, well, I don't have any money, I don't really know what I can do, but sure, I'll come on in. And she came in and we chatted, and she told me about what this other individual was doing. And again, the bells went off in my head, and I said, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. And the funny thing is now I am able to do almost what she was talking about, but there was no pushing, no discussion about, would you like to do this? It was just to get to know me. And it was, Tina and I are good friends, and I see her whenever I'm on campus, and we stay in touch, and it was so easy and comfortable. I never felt pushed. And as you can see from what I said before, that I didn't start, right down that path of larger donations or will assignments until quite a bit later. But it started me thinking about that process of being able to give back and how I could do that. So everybody I've worked with in the office, Tina and now you, Rich, have just been so comfortable and more like friends than, that kind of relationship. Very easy, very soothing, and very safe.
Thanks, Sandy. And to steal some words from David, I mean, we're here to provide an opportunity, right, to our alumni base and get them more involved with the life of the college. We're just so happy that we're focused on the fundraising side of it, but getting them engaged, serving on committees, speaking in classes through an executive residence program. I mean, there's endless opportunities. It just so happens that development is, we're focused on, on the treasure side of things. And it's simply the ability to just meet somebody, hear their Cortland story, and hear if they're in a position where they want to help students and faculty and staff as well. David, would you like to add anything to that question?
Well, I'm going to double down on what Sandy said about becoming friends. Like Rich and I was invited to weddings. He was invited to my daughter's wedding. I mean, that's the kind of relationship that Cortland, the IA people get to. And it's just a wonderful thing because we all have similar stories of how and why we love Cortland. They vary a little bit, but yeah, that relationship that you all develop it's about a relationship. It's not just about, hey, I'm trying to steal your checkbook. I mean, it really is about the relationship and how Cortland has positively impacted so many of us and how we can positively impact people going forward, to decrease debt coming out of college for teachers, which is so important, I know, and all the different things that Sandy has mentioned. I mean, it's been a wonderful and easy relationship, and it evolves into something more than just, hey, what are we going to do about money and helping kids? It becomes collegial and a friendship. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Sandy.
Looking at the clock, we'll ask the last question because I feel that neither one of you may or both of you may have a great answer for it. So it's, how has making these gifts made you feel over time and your involvement with Cortland? And maybe you don't have to have a very long, elaborate response, maybe just a couple buzzwords or keywords that you want to use to describe those feelings. All right, Sandy, we'll put you on the spot first.
I think in my whole life, you don't give to get back, but when you do give, it does make you feel good. And this is no different than giving a gift or a hug to a friend. What you give, you get back. And I very much feel that way because when you choose to give, the Cortland staff validates that. It's very much appreciated, but that's still not why you do it. But it does support that you're making a difference for a student or a program. So I think that's what it is. I know I'm making just a little bit. I don't consider myself a huge donor, but I know I'm giving a little bit. If that can make a difference, then that makes me feel good. And it's a thank you for everything that I've gotten from Cortland.
Thanks, Sandy. That's really special. Thank you for sharing. David, last word.
Well, I love quotes, so I'm just going to quote John Wooden, who most of us know. And to me, this kind of exemplifies how I feel about it. It's you can never have a perfect day without giving to someone who will never be able to repay you. And that's kind of how I feel about it in a nutshell.
Thanks. It's a great way to end our little panel discussion here. I want to thank both of you for taking the time out of your busy days to spend some time with Cortland, to share, why you choose to give back to your alma mater the way that you do, and hopefully will allow others to, give some thought to how they too can have an impact and create a legacy at Cortland. So at this time, if there's any questions from our audience, you're welcome to unmute yourself. I didn't see anything get dropped into the chat box. So any questions from the group? Otherwise, we'll end a little early here today.
I have one question here. Sandy and Dave are both actively involved with the university, and on many levels, right? Advisory boards, C clubs, inner workings, and that is incredibly fantastic. And as an alum myself, makes me feel really good, and my wheels are starting to spin right now. But how do you start to broker those conversations with somebody who isn't quite as involved, right? Like the thought of giving beyond your time here on this round piece of dirt, right? There's a sense of more morbidness to it, right? How do you overcome and broker those conversations, to be an overarching conversation of, like you were saying, Sandy, to be comforting and soothing and safe, right? Not wishing death upon someone so you get their $1 million life insurance policy.
Well,
If I can, that's a great question, Jeff. I never think about it in that term. I think about what I can achieve now, what can make a difference now. And that's why I said that I'm moving away from my will into some other aspects. And that's why I give annually, because I know that will make a difference. So that's never been a tough conversation for me. I also work with a foundation where we have an endowment, and the whole concept is that, give what you can, because it will make a huge difference. As David said, what he does every year makes a difference. So I never really thought about it that way. I just know that at some point I'm not going to be here, but my money will be. So let's make a plan for where it's going, whether it's going to my family or going someplace else. I don't dwell on that, but it's kind of a practical decision on how to get organized financially, if that helps.
yeah, Jeff, for me, I was like you, well, first of all, I'm never going to die, so why would I make a plan like that? I mean, it's just crazy. I don't want to think about that. But as we went along, and I've shared this with Rich, I think he brought up a little earlier. When I talk to people about it, it's an opportunity for you to help someone else. Like Sandy has mentioned, whether it's a hug or whether it's Rich talked about showing up and going to a seminar or whatever for someone. It's really about an opportunity and realizing that, you can help someone else. And it's not about the money. It's about an opportunity for you to both help and, as Sandy mentioned earlier, feel really good about yourself. And that's how I try to look at it at this point, because it's uncomfortable talking about money for many people. But if you look at it as an opportunity as opposed to money, for me, that helps.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from the group? So there's one in the chat box that Angie asked, when is it a good age to begin thinking about planned giving? It's a great question. Do you, any of the panelists want to take that one, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's not a written in stone kind of thing. As I mentioned before, I grew into this over a great deal of time. But in terms of the planned giving, when you're comfortable and you can look at your assets and kind of get a better sense of what you need for your own personal use and what you want to give to your family or have for your family, and then take a look at how other things are working. You know, some of the investments I had, I really didn't look at for a long time. And I didn't understand about, if you had an annuity, how that could be moved over. If you had IRAs, how that could be shared. So as your knowledge base grows and your comfort level grows, that's the time to start talking. And that's what the folks, you know, can talk to you about and help you with, to have that conversation. So it's a combination of things for me.
I would say it's about financial literacy, and that's what Sandy is alluding to. And many of us don't have those conversations with parents or kids, and didn't have it. Certainly I didn't have it. And you know, I had to learn about some of it. I brought some of it up because I was interested and I liked learning. And then Rich piggybacked on that, and kind of like what Sandy's saying, you grow into it. I did it all in about a 4-year period, I think, Rich, or 5, or whatever it was. It went quickly for me, but I didn't anticipate that. Like Sandy's saying, I just wanted to give back $1,000 a year to start, and it turned into much different once I learned what was available. So
Thank you. Anyone else? One last question before we sign off. All right. Well, not seeing any, again, I would like to thank Sandy and David for taking the time out of their lunch hour to spend with us and sharing more on how they have chosen to support Cortland and creating a legacy at the college. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and go Red Dragons.
Dragons.